Welcome to the DrumChats podcast, where we're talking anything and everything to do with drums. Today's topic, drumsticks. Here are your hosts, Travis Davis and Dave Douglas. Hey everybody, you're listening to the DrumChats podcast. We are reaching a milestone today on episode 10. Talking about drumsticks, and I am sitting across a few states from my pal Dave. Dave, how are you, man?
I'm good. Hanging out here.
Yeah. What's the weather like up there? Is it snowing yet or no?
No, there's no snow, but it's cold. It's like in the 30s. It's ridiculous. And it happened really quickly. It was like, it was like in the 50s or even the 60s, and then it was just like a front came through and it got down to like in the 30s, and it felt like it was like really abrupt, and it was going to just be a front, and we'd go back to like 50s or something like that, but it just hasn't. It's just stayed in the 30s. Yeah.
When do you usually see snow? About what time of the year?
I mean, there'll be some flurries periodically, sometimes as early as in November, but usually in December some stuff starts up, but we really don't get into like the meat of the winter, and when you don't see the ground for like 2 months, we don't really usually get into that until really late December or maybe January. Even January, February is kind of like the heart of it,
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Did I just say February really weird? February. I like said it like it's spelled February.
It's spelled really weird. I think that the way that people pronounce it is how it should be spelled.
February. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. So things are good with you?
Yeah, things are good, man. It's getting cold here as well, which is kind of nice. Being a Texas boy, to actually have freezing weather in November is pretty nice. So
that's nice.
I think so. I mean, it's cold, and it's kind of. I mean, I'm so used to having 90-degree Christmases, and so having
that
not
doesn't seem right.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that way.
No.
But it's good, man. Been like you and I were talking, I'm been reaching out to some other drummers recently, and hung out with Josh Gardner the other day. Our friend Josh, he and I had some coffee and talked about drums, and
cool.
It was really good, man.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Great.
So we're talking sticks today, huh?
Drumsticks. Yeah, I guess right off the bat, what sticks do you use?
I use 2B nylons.
You play Vic Firth, right?
Yeah, Vic Firth 2B nylon.
Do you like break a bunch of stuff with those 2Bs?
No, I don't know. What do you mean?
Well, I've heard guys who move into the 2B and up range that it's kind of like it's comparable to like where some companies have like the rock stick.
Yeah, well, Vic Firth has those too, and those are absurd. I actually used to use those, and they're just stupid. I
just feel like a 2B would be not very far from that. And I would love to use a 2B. I'm not coming down on you or anything, because I would probably use a 2B as well.
Okay, but you don't. What do you? Well, okay. So yeah. So first of all, the rock, Vic Firth rock stick is. I think it's actually the same diameter as the 2B, but it's a little bit longer. I think that's really the only difference. That I don't think the taper. Maybe the taper is a little bit different, but I think it's really just like the 2B. Longer.
Oh, gotcha.
But yeah, the 2B is a pretty big stick, but it feels really normal to me. Honestly, if I grab like a 5A or something, it feels really small. It's just, and I'm not trying to like, I'm not like, it's not a thing about like getting the biggest stick possible and hitting the hardest or whatever. It's just,
right.
I mean, it's just kind of, it's just comfortable, and that's what I'm used to. It feels good in my hand. When you use something for a period of time, you just get used to it, and that's just the way it's supposed to feel. So that's the way a drumstick is supposed to feel in my mind. 2B.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. What do you use? Are you a 5A guy?
No, I use Zildjian Travis Barker signatures. I've used them for years, and they hold up really well. I've used them for a long time, and they're comparable to a 5B. I think they're just slightly larger in diameter than a 5B. Like barely.
Okay.
But they're
they're still pretty big diameter then, huh?
Yeah, I think it's like
even bigger than a 5B.
I think it's like a 5/8 diameter, or just shy of 5/8, but they're longer than a normal 5B. They're like an extreme 5B in the length.
Okay.
I think it's just shy of 17 inches maybe, but it's got a ball end bead or a tip.
Oh, yeah.
So I love that versus like an acorn or something.
Yeah. The teardrop.
Those are what I use. And
okay.
I've thought about trying a ProMark 2S, which I guess is like a 2B, just for the length and the diameter. But you were saying like a 5A seems really small to you, especially going from a 2B.
Yeah.
A 5A somehow seems small to me when I even going from a 5B comparable. Like,
yeah, well, and
my
you're
hand
saying,
starts to cramp when I use one.
Right, and you were saying that the stick you use is actually slightly larger diameter than a 5B.
Like if any at all, it's I think it is a little bit.
Well, so maybe we should talk a little bit about this, about what those numbers are. That are all over sticks, and we're throwing out all these numbers, but they're all pretty arbitrary if you don't have any sort of basis for what they are. So just right off the bat, and we can just say the 5A is like by far the most common stick. I think that would probably go without saying.
Yeah, I think so.
Pretty much what people would consider a standard stick.
Right.
So I guess, and actually I pulled a couple things up here. There's a couple explanations of what these numbers are and whatnot. But the first number, is actually, it's like the opposite of diameter. So the larger you go with the number, the smaller the diameter. So like I said, a 2B is what I play. So 2 is really quite thick, and then 5 is getting thinner, and then there's like the 7A and things like that that are even smaller. So it's opposite of that number. The number goes up, the diameter of the stick goes down.
Right.
And then the other thing that's interesting is the letter that comes after it, which seems like it doesn't really have, it seems to be just kind of like a random thing. They're actually designated for what the sticks were designed for initially.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really weird. So like an A does tend to be, like if you have a 5A and a 5B, the B is slightly thicker, but it's because A stands for orchestra, and it's like an all-around stick that was kind of designed or intended for like big bands and orchestras and stuff like that. And then B stands for band, actually. Oh. So it'd be like brass bands and things like that. And then S actually stands for street. And those would be typically used for like drum corps or like marching bands and stuff like that. Yeah. So those A, B, S, those actually do in practice designate a slightly larger stick as they go up. Yeah. But so it kind of works in conjunction with the numbers. It's really bizarre. It seems really inexact, all this stuff. But if you get a 5A or a 5B from every company, I think they're going to be really similar. It seems like there has kind of been an established kind of sizes that have, I don't know exactly how all that went down, but over time they have been standardized to some extent. But yeah, so that's kind of the quick background and what those letters and numbers mean. But it seems a little bit inexacting, as I said. So so you still, if you're really interested in figuring out, like if you use a particular type of stick and you want to just get one that's like a tiny bit longer or a tiny bit thicker or whatever, you're still going to need to go onto some websites and actually look at companies and see what the models are and actually look at the numbers. Yeah. Or just go to a music store and hold sticks in your hand. Yeah. I guess that's maybe the easiest thing to do. That's
the best way. Good hands-on experience.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so I use the 2B. So it's the 2 designates a pretty large diameter. The B would also be kind of reinforcing that it's a large diameter. And then I use the nylon tip actually. So we can get into tips a little bit as well. But yeah. So you said yours is a little bit like a 2. Or like a 5B, is that what you said? Your sticks that you use, basically.
Well, I just thought of this. I used to play Vic Firth sticks. Have you ever tried or held like a SD1 General? It's like
are those
like a junior
crazy
marching.
I was gonna say, are those crazy marching sticks?
Yeah, it's almost like a twin to that as far as like the length and the style and diameter and everything. But yeah, it's pretty comparable to a 5B, just with a different tip, and then the taper.
The length, you said.
And then the length, and then the taper is actually relatively short.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So that's the other thing. So like the stick, like you've got like the butt of the stick is the rounded end that's in your hand, and then the stick, and then there's the shoulder where it like tapers down towards the tip, and then you've got the tip. So everyone kind of understands that the taper is actually the length of the stick between the bead where you actually contact the drum, and the taper as it gets larger till it becomes like the diameter that the entire length of the stick is, you know? Right. So there's that kind of in between area as it's going down to the tip there. So the taper, when it's really short, it adds more weight to the stick out further away from your hand. So it actually makes the stick feel heavier, even if it's not. And if you have a long taper, you know, the tip of the heading out towards the tip of the stick gets skinny, takes a longer time. So you're actually removing more wood from the stick. So more of the weight of the stick is actually back in your hand. So some people like that because it makes the stick feel a little more balanced, like it's not front heavy. But if you're a hard hitter, a lot of people like to have the shorter taper, because they want that weight out towards the end of the stick, so it's kind of contributing. It's like using a heavy hammer as opposed to a light hammer, you know. Right. So you got to get it moving, but it's a little extra weight to it once you get it moving. So yeah, but the stick that I use, the 2B nylon, is just like a medium taper. It's just like very standard taper. It's not trying to do anything special, not trying to add weight or take weight away. It's just kind of being what it is. And I actually tend to just barely choke up on the stick a little bit too. So I'm actually kind of artificially reducing some weight from the tip of the stick, actually, because I'm getting a little extra counterweight just beyond my hand, you know, as I hold it. The butt of the stick kind of sticks out maybe like an inch or so. You know, some guys will have the butt of the stick like way up, like right in line with their pinky or something, you know, like they're just covering the end of it, like they have a baseball bat and they're all the way down, making the stick as long as it can be. But I tend to just barely choke up a little bit. And you said yours is a little bit of a longer stick. Do you choke up at all?
I do. I usually have about, I'd say probably about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch of the butt of the stick coming out the back of my hand.
Right, just enough to not be on the end of the stick, right?
Which is funny, because what I don't like about a normal 5B is the length, and and Travis Barker's sticks being longer than a normal 5B, but having the diameter. Like I said, before I moved to his, I was playing extreme 5Bs, which are that length.
Right.
But it's like, I bought this extra length and now I'm choking up on it.
Yeah, but it does more than you're not just throwing that length away. It's actually a counterweight. It's actually balancing the stick differently. Right. So having that length can be really useful, even if you're not using it for the purposes of length. You know? Yeah. It's just changing where the stick is balanced and how much weight it feels like you're swinging out there at the tip. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, you know, and I started doing that when I was using some other sticks that were even longer than the 2Bs. And then it was just like got into a habit, and I just felt like it just made the sticks feel lighter when I choked up just a tiny bit. And I felt like I could play a little bit quicker with a little less effort. You know, everything about playing drums is trying to make ease of use, you know, kind of a thing, make yourself play better. And whatever makes playing easier is usually a good move, unless it looks stupid.
Yeah. Well, I remember one of the sticks, or the pair of sticks we're giving away in this contest is Garrett Goodwin's sticks that he plays with ProMark, and they're actually 2S's. And I remember he and I were.
So those are big.
They've got some mass to them. And
whoa.
And
well, he plays huge drums too, right? It's like everything's big.
Big cymbals, big drums, big sticks.
Yeah, yeah.
But I remember asking him, I was like, I love these sticks, but I feel like I would break everything just because they're like giant dowel rods. Right. And I remember noticing how he played, talking about choking up. Like, he doesn't choke up at all. Whoa. And the as long as they are, like, they have significant length to them. Yeah. The butt of the stick actually is almost in the palm of his hand. So he's using almost every inch of that stick.
No way. Well, his drums are so big, they end up being so far away from him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy. That's crazy. Well, he doesn't play anything like terribly fast, does he?
I think it's more, he's more about velocity and just real in the pocket.
Right.
Heavy hitting.
Yeah. So, play to the floor. That's what I was saying.
Which is interesting. You talk about playing fast, and I think of I see these guys like shred a lot on Instagram or YouTube or wherever, and they're just going a million miles an hour. And I thought about that because I'll take their Vic Firth, Ralph, somebody, their marching sticks, and I'll usually warm up with those. They're really thick. But I'll hold on to the side that the taper's on. And I'll warm up with the butt end of those.
Right, so they're just like super heavy.
They're super heavy. And then going to my 5Bs, you know, after I warm up with those for 10 or 15 minutes and I go back to my regular sticks, they feel extremely light, almost uncomfortably light.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which is funny because like whenever I started playing, I would buy, I think the first pair of sticks I ever saw and just picked up were Dennis Chambers Zildjians.
Okay.
And they're basically a 7A.
So tiny, huh?
Tiny and
like pencils.
Yeah. And so like I go back and I see 7As. I'm like, how did I play with these? Like,
yeah, you know, and years ago, like I played in a band with a dude. I played guitar, and this dude, the drummer, played 7As or something, and I was just like blown away. I could never understand like using a stick that thin. But you know, again, it's like, you know, what's comfy? What are you used to? And in playing style, you know, it's like playing lighter music. This wasn't lighter music that I'm talking about, so it didn't make a ton of sense. But like playing lighter music, you tend to want a lighter stick. You know, you don't want it to be so heavy-handed. You want to have some subtlety and a little bit more control and whatnot. You know, so it does tend to kind of follow people's playing styles, and playing styles, you know, certainly match up with the kind of music it is as well. So usually the heavier the music, the heavier the stick. It's not a rule by any means, but it's pretty common. You could draw that on a graph. I think it would be pretty consistent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense too. Like the smaller the stick, the smaller the sound. Bigger stick, the bigger the sound.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like you see guys. I feel like I see it more. It's not really fair to say this, but I feel like I see it more in worship settings than anywhere else. But where some guys will swap their left hand, or if they're right-handed, their snare stick, and they'll play with the butt end of it.
Right.
Just because it doesn't taper at all, and it's just as big as a stick can be. They're hitting more surface area, and it's making a bigger sound. Whereas, you know, think about it, a 5B to a 7B or whatever, the smaller your stick, the more concentrated the point of impact, and it's making less sound and less impact.
Yeah, and it's actually like a little bit more, it's more articulate, you know, the smaller the tip is, and it's really, really especially noticeable on cymbals. You know, if you have a little tiny edge of a round tip that hits the cymbal, it's a real like a ting, as opposed to like the side of a stick, or even a larger tip, you know, a barrel or like a teardrop or whatever. So the tip definitely makes a difference as well. But yeah, I've seen that a fair amount as well. People will flip the stick around for the ballad or the backbeat, you know, in a big chorus or something like that. Yeah, you definitely see that. So why don't we take a quick little break, and then we'll come back and maybe talk about some brands and things like that.
Good deal. Are you the winner of the DrumChats giveaway contest? Stick around after the episode and find out. Hey everybody, this is Travis, and I'm bringing you the tip of the day, which is how to take care of your tension rods and lug inserts. What I do whenever I'm changing my heads out is I'll take a pipe cleaner and I'll put that in a drill and I'll make it spin inside of each tension rod and just clean out some of the dirt and grime that collects over time in those inserts. Once I'm done with that, after I'm ready to put the new head on, I'll take the old tension rods and I'll put just a tiny dab of white lithium grease on the threads. And then I'll run the tension rod down into the insert and then pull it back out and then be ready to tune. And what that white lithium grease does is just kind of helps smooth out the tuning process, especially after cleaning out the insert. It tends to last a little bit longer than Vaseline. And it's just something that I like to do just to maintain upkeep on my inserts. All right, let's get back to the show.
Hey everybody, we are back from Travis's incredible tip. And we're going to talk about
tips.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get into tips a little bit later. But yeah, so we already mentioned, like, I use Vic Firth. Travis, you said you use Zildjian. There's a bunch of other brands out there. There's like a ton. ProMark's a huge one. I actually used to use Vader. Yeah. And then Regal Tip is a pretty popular one. What else is out there?
Oh gosh.
I mean, it seems like so many drum companies make sticks, even if that's not really what they're known for. That's kind of like a thing, right? Like Tama.
Yeah. Innovative Percussion is a big one.
I've never even heard of that. So
really?
What?
I'd never known about them until I moved here. And I would see several session drummers here were endorsed by them, Innovative Percussion. I actually met their A&R rep at one of the studios here, and I didn't know that they were that. I thought that they were just one of those companies that made drumsticks. Yeah. But they weren't really competing, but apparently they're kind of up there. You just have to know about them.
Okay, so they're like making a play right now, and they're endorsing a bunch of people, but a lot of people haven't maybe heard of them. So maybe they'll be on the radar soon. Yeah. But yeah, it seems like most drum companies, a lot of them, like Pearl makes them, and
Ahead actually makes pretty interesting sticks.
Oh, see, I didn't know that Ahead made sticks at all.
Well, I use their cases, but their sticks, I don't know how many different options they have, but they're very known for, I know Lars Ulrich plays them. Oh. Tommy Lee plays them. Oh. And do
they only make metal sticks?
Yeah, as far as I know. It's just metal sticks, which to me, like, to each his own, and those guys are like in that genre, but
I mean, no one should ever use metal sticks. I'm just
like
going to go ahead and put that out there. I'm going to say it.
I feel like that would be a really just harsh sound to hear from your cymbals. Like,
I just don't think it should exist. I'm going to say that. Yeah, and I'm okay with saying that. It shouldn't exist.
I think that the idea behind it, they have like an aluminum center or something, and you can get plastic sleeves and replacement plastic tips.
That's so dumb.
But the idea was to make them last longer.
Yeah. Okay.
But to me, it's just like there's more con that outweighs the pro, in my opinion.
It's just a bad idea, I think. But whatever, I guess whatever works for you. But I would never suggest anyone use metal drumsticks or anything besides wood.
Have you ever heard of Silver Fox drumsticks?
Nope.
I think they're an Australian company, and I looked at some of their stuff, and they actually make really cool sticks. Oh, cool. And they endorse guys, but I think they're on like a lower level. I can't remember. They had a couple guys who were, I can't for the life of me remember who exactly they dealt with, but apparently the way that they lacquer their sticks increases the length of like the lifespan. Oh. And they're just known for they're just known for being really durable.
Okay.
I think they're from Australia, if I'm not mistaken. But
you said it's the way that they lacquer their sticks?
From what I've heard.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that real quick, because there are different ways that sticks are finished, right?
Yeah.
And that's a really common one, is to lacquer them. I think I would say that's probably, again, that's like the standard, right? A lacquered
I
stick,
think so.
like just like a light lacquer. I think you can get like heavy lacquered sticks, which I think can increase kind of like the tackiness of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just a light lacquer is pretty normal on sticks, although there are unfinished sticks as well.
Yeah.
Is it ProMark that's kind of known for that, or Regal Tip maybe?
Well, I know ProMark does, because Garrett was telling me that. I don't know if he still does, but when I was at a studio, he had a whole pack where he would ask them to make his sticks without lacquer, or they're just raw, better grip on them. Yeah,
the thing that's interesting to me, I know that some people talk about how like it'll tear up your hands if you're not used to it because they're a little bit rougher. I guess that's probably the case. But the thing that's interesting to me, and I've never used them before, but with the unfinished sticks, I know that they're not protected anymore from moisture. So as you're playing, your sweat is actually being absorbed into the stick.
That's actually a good point.
It changes the way the stick feels and how the grip is on it. And I would think that it would get worse.
Yeah.
Is that maybe not? Maybe absorbing the moisture actually expands the grain, and maybe it would actually make it rougher. Maybe it would help you grip the stick. I don't know. I don't know either.
You bring up a good point, because like also what's interesting is I remember when Garrett mentioned that to me, that he had them unfinished, he also takes like just tennis racket tape and he wraps the handles.
Oh really?
Like generally.
Yeah.
I've heard of guys, I think Adam Willard, I was watching him because he's a Vader guy.
Yeah.
And he plays the Power 5B, but he would have his tech lightly sand off that lacquer just in the handle area.
Oh yeah, just to kind of rough it up a little bit.
But I mean, I think with those guys too, I feel like they're hitting hard enough to where their sticks aren't lasting long enough for their sweat to affect it that much.
Yeah, that could be. And if you're just lightly sanding, if depending on the grit of the sandpaper, like it makes sense to actually create an area down there that's actually has texture, you know, because you don't want to be tired. You don't want to be expending energy gripping the stick. You want to be playing the drums. Like you want to be swinging your arms, not gripping the stick. You know, it's like when you Travis, when you're pumping iron.
When I'm pumping iron,
you know, when you're pumping iron, and you got the dumbbells, you know, that's like the dumbbells. They're all like textured, the grips on them, right? Because like, you know, you don't want them to slide out of your hands, those heavy weights, and smash your toes or anything, right?
Yeah.
So they make them textured so that they stick in your hands a little bit easier. So when you're swinging a drumstick around and you're trying to play something, like you don't need to be expending your energy gripping the stick,
right?
You know.
Yeah.
And then also when you're gripping like that, you know, you can end up getting cramps and stuff, especially if you haven't warmed up. So, so it kind of makes sense to me to use some sandpaper down there. I've never done that, but that does make sense to me.
Well, talking about texture, I know I'd mentioned to you the other day, I saw a video where this tech would take their sticks and take a box cutter or razor blade, and he would like start, I don't know, in the middle of the stick and work his way back to the butt, and he would cut like a spiral groove down it, and then just like, you know, wipe off the splinters and stuff. But that would allow the idea was that it would allow air travel. Like that texture would just create less surface area, I guess, for your hand to grip, like kind of like what you're saying, just like a drastic measure.
It's providing traction, right? It's, you know, it's providing texture.
Well, like I'm looking at some sticks right now where people make them that way. They're called Cooper groove drumsticks.
Okay.
And they're the grip side is actually pre-textured, where they just got notches cut out. It's actually pretty cool. Like I can see why they would do that. I just wonder if that weakens the stick at all. Do you see that?
Looking it up right now. Cooper groove.
Headhunters drumsticks. They make some that are like.
Oh, dude, this Cooper groove. Oh, yeah. So this is definitely like providing some texture, grip support. This actually reminds me of like the diamond pattern on like metal.
Like diamond plated steel.
Yeah, exactly. That's what this kind of reminds me of. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess that makes sense. You know, whatever is creating texture. And it looks like on this Cooper Groove, are some of these coated then as well?
Looks like they're dipped,
the grip area is coated or dipped. And I guess a bunch of companies probably do that as well. Again, I've never used anything like that, but you see that sometimes where the butt end of the stick looks like it's been dipped in some sort of rubber grippy stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's just coated, so there's again more texture to hold on to. And I suppose, I don't know how thick that stuff is. Have you messed around with sticks that are like that at all? Is there like any cushioning that it adds or anything like that?
I know when I first started, the drummer that played for the church I was coming up in, I just mimicked whatever sticks he had, and he played Zildjian 7As, and they were the dipped ones.
That sounds exactly like a church.
Right? Yeah. That's
7A.
Dipped 7As.
He probably wore gloves too.
He didn't, and I'm glad he didn't, because we won't get into it, but that's a little much to me. But
dude, there was a time I probably for like 2 years or so, I would wear a glove just on my left hand, but I had all the fingers cut off. So it was just, you know, it was like a biker glove. It looked like, you know, but it was a drumming glove, but I just wore one on my left hand, and I started doing it out of necessity because it was at a time that we were playing at an absurd number of shows, and my left hand was just falling apart, like literally falling apart. I had like massive like chunks out of my hand. My skin would just have these huge cracks develop in it. I have a few of my fingers would develop these cracks in certain areas. And then the area between my index finger and my middle finger on my left hand, that little area there, that's like the little webbing right between your finger. Yeah. It actually would crack wide open. Like someone took a knife and just like chink, like right through there. And it's just from over and over, just the impact on the stick, on my snare hand, just smack, over and over. And so I started wearing a glove just on my left hand. And then it became a thing that I was just used to, and I felt like I couldn't play without a glove just on my left hand, you know. Dang, since then, you know, I've done different things and used specific tapes and things like that. But yeah, there was a period of time that I did use that. Yeah. I tried to make it cool. I tried to make it a thing, you know, like
get your name stitched in the back of it.
Yeah, you know, like, oh, hey, I got this one glove on my left hand, like and the Michael Jackson of drummers. It's pretty sweet. Totally, yeah. So I tried to play it up like that. But yeah, I did do that for a short time.
Well, it's funny you talk about that kind of abuse to your hand, like the dipped sticks. Like I have pretty calloused hands just from over time, but the dipped sticks. That sounds so weird.
Yeah, that's tough to say.
Yeah, that's tough to say. They would just rub my fingers and my palms really weird.
All right.
And talking about abusing your hands, I was going through Instagram, and Travis Barker's Tech showed a video of his hands after they played a show. I think they're doing a Las Vegas residency. Yeah. And they showed his hands, and I knew that he would cut his hands all the time and stuff. And I've cut my hands, and you know, you rub calluses, they're blisters at some point. But his hands were that way, where they just looked like they were like dry rotted and just bleeding and
the number of shows where I would end and there'd be blood all over my drums is just like, it's too many, really. And sometimes it would just be, you know, sometimes just something split open. Ugh. You didn't even do anything wrong. You're just something split open. But a lot of times it would be, I would like catch a finger or something on a hi-hat or on my snare drum, actually like smack it on the rim.
Yeah.
And then you'd have a cut, and then for the next 40 minutes, you're swinging blood out of your hand because your hand's bleeding, and you're just swinging it, and you're forcing blood like out of an open wound. Yeah. And so things would just be covered, you know? And there were plenty of shows where I would come off and my pants would be like just drenched in blood, you know, especially if I'd cut my left hand like on the rim of my snare or something. And then I'm just, because I would always kind of smack my left thigh when I hit my snare drum, and so I'm just constantly rubbing blood into my pants like every single time I hit the snare drum. So of course, you know, over 40 minutes of playing music, it's just like it's like someone dumped a bottle of blood on my leg or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, there's plenty of those times. I don't know how we got talking about that. Anyway, yeah, hands. Yeah, they fall apart. So gloves. Yeah. And I guess you were talking about the grip of the dipped sticks.
Yeah. Well, again, I've said his name a bunch of times, but Travis Barker's Signatures, the sticks I use, they have a matte paint, like a chalk paint finish on them.
Okay.
So they're really where a lacquer is kind of like that sticky smooth kind of feel. Mm-hmm. These are kind of comparable to a raw feeling because they're just very dry and almost chalky.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And then, over time, the more you use a stick, that kind of smooths down.
Right.
But even still, that chalkiness provides a grip that is really comfortable to me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And so whenever I play like a lacquered stick, it feels like it wears differently on my hand than what I would normally be used to.
It feels, or in my mind, like a drumstick. Oh, drumsticks. What are we going to talk about? Whatever, But there's a lot of subtleties, and people just get used to a certain thing, and there's a lot of different options out there. Once you get used to it, and then you try to switch to something else, it can be dramatic, like how it feels in your hand and when you're playing. So you definitely got to try some things out and see what works for you. And if there's something that annoys you about your sticks, or they're slipping out of your hands or whatever it is, there's probably some other stick out there that might help combat that problem. So it's definitely worth looking into and just diving through some of the brand's websites and kind of seeing what's out there for sure.
Which is interesting you say that, because we're going to get into some of the percussive sticks here in a little bit, but I've heard and know drummers who, like, typically for me, I have a bag full of the same exact stick. Yeah. And if I'm going to do something different, I have a pair of hot rods or a pair of mallets, and that's really it. But I've seen where guys will get different types of sticks for different genres. Like where I'm playing a 5B for this rock setting, but if I'm playing something softer or swingy or whatever, I have a pair or two of 7As or whatever. And for me, like, I get the mindset where, like we were talking about earlier, the mass of the stick will change the sound.
Yeah.
But I feel like that size difference, that the diameter difference would just throw me off so much that my hand would just cramp.
I know. I'm definitely used to what I'm used to. I like my size. I pick it for a reason or whatever. But that definitely makes a ton of sense, though, especially with dudes who play a bunch of different styles with a bunch of different artists or doing a lot of studio sessions.
Yeah.
And I know a few people who would carry a bag of sticks that have all different types. And I think if I just kind of think about it, place myself in that situation, it does make sense. If I'm holding a lighter stick, I'm not going to be just smacking the heck out of the drums, Yeah. So I think it may be a little bit like that, like some of the tips that we've given in the past about changing something up or putting yourself in a situation where, moving a drum or whatever, like having a little difference can actually affect the way you play on like a larger scale than just that one thing, because it kind of does something in your mind subconsciously. You're just going to play a little differently. So it does make sense to me. But I think if you're not used to switching, we get stuck in our lane.
Yeah.
And, my lane is 2B nylon. So if you put something in my hand that's not that, I mean, who cares about the tip, It can be a wood tip. It doesn't matter. But if I put a stick in my hand that's not a 2B, that it just feels really weird. But I'm not used to switching stuff around.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to me.
Yeah. The thought process behind it definitely makes sense. And it's true. Like, you change a stick for a different genre, you are going to get a different sound or different feel. But I just feel like the feel for me would be so drastic that I wouldn't even be able to concentrate.
Yeah. I hear you.
Backtrack real quick. We keep talking about the tip of the stick. And you mentioned you played nylons. I used to play nylons. What drew you to play nylons versus a wood tip?
Yeah, years and years ago, I would use the wood tip, and then I eventually switched to the nylon because I kept getting washier and washier cymbals, rides specifically. I really wanted a ride that I could crash on and really opened up and was really washy. But then the more you lean that way with a ride cymbal, the less definition you get out of actually like pinging on the top. Like if you're going to do a ride and you're not just crashing on it or washing on it.
Right.
And so to reinforce the stick attack for times that I needed it, I switched over to the nylon so I could have that little extra ping, just to get that definition out of a washier cymbal that I was using. Yeah, so that was the whole thing. And a lot of people would ask me if I would break the tips off and all that kind of stuff, because that's kind of the thing that people tend to talk about with nylon tips. It's like if they'll lose tips.
Yeah.
And I have never ever had that be a problem. I've probably only lost a handful of tips in my entire life, and I think it's probably just because I don't use the tip very much, to be honest. I mean, obviously you're hitting the drums with the tip, but that kind of impact, like the head gives, right? It's a little bit of a cushion. So the impact on the drum heads themselves is not going to be incredibly tremendous. Sure. I think where that impact happens really dramatically on the tip of the stick is on cymbals if you're playing with the tip. And the only time I play with the tip on a cymbal is if I'm on the ride. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not washing it out. I'm actually like doing something that I need to have that articulation. And when I'm doing that, it tends to mean I'm playing a little bit faster too, and I'm not playing that hard on the ride cymbal. Cymbals are too loud as it is. So so I've never had that be an issue, but getting that definition out of the ride cymbal is the reason why I switched over.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen you play it a number of times and seen y'all's videos and stuff, and it seems like normally you're crashing on your ride, but I know Reliant K, especially being as dynamic as y'all are, I have seen where you do actually use a ride for the ping of it. And for me, I think every drummer runs into that. Like every drummer does use a ride for its purpose.
Right. Yeah.
Even if 80% of the time you're crashing on it.
Yeah.
I used to use nylons, and I had a problem with breaking them.
Oh, you did?
And
really?
I don't know if maybe it was the shape of them, because I know yours, the tip on your stick is different than like what a normal 5B would be.
5B, it's like a teardrop. Just like I think that's just like the normal deal. Yeah, okay. I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I would have a problem with them just splitting in half. And so I'm like, man, my stick is still intact, but the tip's gone. And
that sucks. I've never really had that be an issue.
I do have a problem with that occasionally, like after a while, even with the sticks I use now, where it's a wood tip, but where it would just kind of chip away over time. Oh yeah. And so that even affects the sound of that stick if I'm riding on the ride, like for its ping, it'll make it softer. Was kind of and that's kind of the thing with the washy ride cymbals, because when I was using wood tips, after just a short period of time, you start to chew up the tip of the stick, and you lose all that ping, that attack, Yeah. So yeah, that was again, that was the reason to switch over, because the nylon tip doesn't get chewed up in the same way. It pretty much is what it is. You break the stick, or I should say, in my experience, I break the stick way before the tip has any sort of issue. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then again, like I'd usually go through a couple pairs of sticks during a show, Yeah. So. Right. Well, let's go ahead and take another break and hear a story time, and then we'll come back.
Hey guys, it's Dave, and this is story time. So this is a little story about a drum fill in the song College Kids. Reliant K, 2 lefts don't make a right, but 3 do. And this fill it takes place at 2 minutes and 47 seconds into the song. And I was really proud of this fill. But you know what? It actually took me a long time to get it right in the studio. And I guess it's kind of a little bit of a lesson in being prepared going to the studio, because I still find this to be the case now. I do some sessions for other artists and whatnot, and sometimes it can take me a few takes to start to feel like I'm really getting in the pocket with something, and really getting a handle on how I want to play it and being tight with it. Once it really clicks, then it's pretty repeatable. If you spend like a half hour playing a song over and over, trying to really get the feel of it in the studio, once you do lock that thing in, you can play it with a good feel a bunch of times in a row. You know, so I always say like, oh man, that took me 4 hours today to get these handful of songs done. But tomorrow we could come back and I could get them done in like 45 minutes, you know? But this fill in College Kids, I spent a long time on, and I kept being like, give me one more try, over and over. And Mark Townsend, who's producing that record along with many of the other Relient K records, was getting so annoyed with me. And he was like, why are you writing things you can't play? You know, and then I would just be like, it's fine, I can play it. Give me one more shot. And we'd just punch in over and over and over. And it's really cool. The fill, it's like a combination of 6-tuplets and 16th notes, kind of all intertwined. It's like a half of a 6-tuplet and 4 16th notes, half a 6-tuplet, 4 16ths, and then half a 6-tuplet and like a tied 16th or a 8th note, I guess. And it's counted super weird. And it's going back and forth between the kick drum and the snare and then down the toms right at the end. But I'll actually post a picture of it. I actually was just thinking about it and was trying to figure out like, what actually is that fill? And so I just wrote it down on a piece of paper, notated it real quick, and I'll take a picture of that and maybe we can include a link, but I'll definitely put it on the DrumChats Instagram and on my personal Instagram as well. And it's pretty fun. But the other thing that's kind of interesting about it is the fact that when you actually hear it in the song, it just like goes by and it kind of doesn't even matter that it's there. So I spent like a ton of time on it in the studio and was like super pumped to get it finally. And then when it goes by in the song, it's like you don't even really notice it. So yeah, so be prepared, but also at the same time be aware that serving the song and playing what's needed is the most important thing. And adding your little flourishes maybe don't matter as much as you think they do. So, yeah, serve the song, you know? It's all about the song. It's not about your little self-indulgent part. So that's that. And yeah, so that's my story about the fill at 2 minutes, 47 seconds into College Kids, going into the last chorus. So check that out if you would. It's pretty fun. All right, bye.
Hey guys, we are back, and I'm sure Dave had a really funny story.
Ooh, that was a doozy.
Dude, your stories are always your stories are always hilarious. Like if I'm trying to come up with a story to tell,
yeah.
Yours, it seems like yours are always just ridiculous and don't ever happen to any, like the bees at Dark Horse.
Oh, well, yeah, that was a funny one.
Okay, maybe not ridiculous where nobody has them, but I'm like blown away by your stories. I'm like, I have nothing close to that.
Well, yeah, so. I have a list of stories that I'm working off of, you know, and I've never really had a place to talk about them before. Have I mentioned this on the podcast before? I've never really had a place to talk about these stories, and sometimes you're talking to someone and out of nowhere they're just like, oh, tell me a cool story about being on the road, you know.
And I'm just
like,
something.
Well, no, and I'm just like, I draw a blank immediately. I'm just like,
okay.
I don't know. Like, what do you want to hear? Like, I don't know. I don't have any stories.
Yeah.
So, but it's always been very random. Like when someone wants me to tell a story, that's something that happened, you know.
Yeah.
So now that we're doing this and we have our story time, there's actually a place for me to tell a story, and so now, when something reminds me of a story, because things remind me of stories all the time. Things always pop into my head that have happened, you know, or whatever. But now instead of just like, oh yeah, I remember that, and then going on, I actually take a second and like write it down, like, oh, bees at Dark Horse or whatever, you know? Well, and so I have a little list of, it's pretty big actually. I have a big list of stories that need to be told. So now that I have a place to tell them, so it's pretty fun.
I can't help but think like, your experience with Relient K and for as long as you'd been with them, the way that I see it is like, if the band that I'm watching brings a white buffalo on the stage during the entire time
yes.
of their concert, they have to have a lot of stories.
Oh yeah.
that to be a thing.
Oh yeah,
Durmike. I still want to know the actual truth behind Durmike. We can get to that another time, but
yes.
Yeah, man. So let's get into. We've talked about brands. We still need to talk about materials. Well, we kind of touched into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how you should never use a metal stick. Sticks are supposed to be made of wood. So yeah, but people make sticks out of different wood. Companies make sticks of different woods. Hickory is what the 2B that I use is made out of, and I think that's probably the most common hickory. And it's a good balance of durability. It's a hardwood that's durable, but not like absurdly hard like oak, which is another one. And I think oak is one where they talk about how it can be really tough on your wrists because it just transfers all that energy, like the shock of hitting the drum actually just really it transfers that energy into your wrists, you know. And then a softer wood like a maple will be something that's a little bit easier actually on your wrists and arms because it absorbs more, but it's not as durable. It can actually flex a little bit more, but then, you know, the wood isn't as hard, so they might tend to break, or you might just tend to chew up the side of the stick a lot more on your cymbals or rims or whatever. Okay. But I think those are probably the main ones. Hickory is probably the most popular. And then
especially American hickory. I feel like they like specify it's American hickory.
I know, right? American hickory. And then and then I think the maple and the oak probably come up next. And then there's a bunch of other ones too that maybe are a little bit more specialized, or maybe it's just for the look of it. I don't know. Is there any other ones that you found that were interesting?
Well, I remember the first time I had heard of one of my friends plays ProMark sticks, and he like swears by them. I mean, ProMark's a great company, and I know they're out of Houston, which I'm from Houston, and I didn't know they were from Houston until I moved to Austin. Wow. But they have like I think it's Japanese white oak or something like that. Oh, okay. Where they're known to be really durable, and like you said, like I think they're durable because of how dense oak can be. Yeah. But the con of that it would transfer that energy down your wrist a little bit easier. Right. I have seen. I don't think they're very common. I think they're more of like a gimmick, but where sticks aren't wood or metal, but they're more of like a rubber polymer kind of mix, where they're where it's like they're definitely molded.
Wow. When you say like a rubber polymer mix, all I can think of is like when I was a really little kid and you get the pair of drumsticks that have sounds built into them and you just like air drum and they're just like, well, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. And I actually had a pair. I haven't had them in a long time, but I remember I bought them because I thought they looked really cool. But the shaft, the whole stick itself was just black. And then it had like this really... I can't think of what example to give to it, but the handle was a really thick rubber coating on it. Yeah. Where it was just not comfortable, and it had a lot of mass to it. Yeah. But the stick itself was not wood. It was almost like the same material you're talking about, but it was an actual stick. And the tip on it had to be like an inch long. Like, it was ridiculous.
I don't even get it. What was this stick? Why did you have it?
I was like 13 and I saw it in a music store and I thought it was really cool, and I didn't know the difference in sticks.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I now, but I never used them ever. Yeah. And they just felt really weird because they weren't made out of wood or metal. So even the backswing on them, it almost, I don't think they did, but it almost felt like they would flex whenever you would come back around, like they would just kind of bow. It felt like they were doing that because they were like a plastic combination of a bunch of different materials or something. Okay. But I can't think of many other, at least for regular drumsticks, I can't think of any other materials other than metal, wood, and plastic. I feel like that would be it. Oh yeah. Ice maybe? I don't know.
Ice sticks. Yeah. Real common. Real common.
I don't think there's any like stone or concrete sticks. I think that would just be suicide for your drums. But talk about materials, getting into like the percussive stuff. Yeah. That's where we can see a lot of different types of sticks. We've got hot rods, mallets, brushes, and even different, like even in the hot rods, you can get some with different, because they're for people who don't know what a hot rod is, they're very, very light sounding sticks. but they're a combination of like small dowel rods that are like taped together.
Like a bundle of sticks.
Yeah. Imagine really thick spaghetti just taped together. It's like a bundle of sticks. Yeah, but you can get those.
It's a bundle of sticks. Yeah.
You can get those in different diameters, and that helps make the sound different.
Yeah, and I have a bunch of different Hot Rod style. And I guess Hot Rod is actually a brand, right? Isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's been generalized now, but yeah.
Yeah, everyone just kind of calls them Hot Rods. But I'm actually on Vic Firth's site because I'm a Vic Firth guy. And I think they have a couple different, I'm not even really sure. They have something called a Root and then Talawans.
Talawans.
I'm not really sure what all this is about, to be honest. But I guess I have a few pairs of the Talawans, I guess. Oh, so here's the deal. I think I know what the deal is here. Root, R-U-T-E, is like the bundle of sticks that we talked about, gathered with some sort of like a rubber grip kind of fastening it together. And then the Talawans actually has a core that's like I don't even know what it is. It's like a foam core, and it's surrounded by the sticks.
Yes.
And those I really like those ones a lot.
Nice.
I have a couple different sizes of those as well as the Root, but I really like those a lot. They actually add a certain amount of bounce to your stick. It feels a little bit more like you're playing with a stick with a good feel, because the bundle of sticks, hot rod type of situation, you know, when you hit the drum with it or a cymbal, it's a bundle, and so it spreads out and it kind of acts as like a damper. So you don't, it's really tough to have any sort of like touch or feel for getting like doing doubles or anything like that, right? Because all that momentum just kind of splat, kind of spreads itself out. So if you have the Talawan with the foam center, it actually has a little bit of a bounce to it.
Yeah.
It really adds that back in to feel a little bit more like a stick. So I really like those a lot and have a fair amount of experience with those. I've used those with Reliant K in like acoustic shows or things like that. I really like those.
Yeah, I've always seen those different, like the Tala versus the Root, but I never knew that there was. I like that Vic Firth actually explains like the difference and has them divided like that. Like Steve Smith has a lot of like his signature ones I'm looking at, or the Tala ones at least, and like there's even some that aren't round rods, but they're even square, and there's just like 4 of them.
Yeah.
This is intense, man. I had no idea that.
Yeah, like, and even the sticks themselves, like that are bundled together, they'll have ones of different diameter. That you can get. So it's like, you know, whatever, it's 20 little sticks or versus 12 or whatever.
Well, what's cool is not only different diameters, but different materials too. Like, you can get them in nylon, and I've seen like rubber bundles and stuff. Like those really, I forget what they're actually used for. I don't know if they're for congas or what, but they're really big. Like probably like an 1.5 inch diameter, and I think Vic Firth makes them, and they're black.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, and then there's also things that are like almost like a broom. Do you know what I'm talking about? They're like really fat, big ones like that too, and they're bundled up, almost look like a broom, and you play drums with those. And they just, I mean, there's so many different sounds that you can get out of these things, and there's like a bazillion different products. So when you get away from actual traditional stick and you start getting into this, it's just like
it's wild,
endless.
Man.
It's endless. It just goes on, and they do create different sounds, and there's way different feels, and you can kind of I mean, really the thing to do would just be to go to a big music store, and it's some place that has a really big percussion section, and just kind of see if you can mess around with them a little bit, you know.
I'm looking at one on Vic Firth's. We just keep going back to Vic Firth, but
that's my brand.
I'm on their website, and I'm looking at the Cajon Brullet. It's like a brush mallet.
Okay.
It's got like It's got like a nylon fan brush, like you would see, but then right behind that, there's like a foam ball, where it would be like considered the shoulder of the stick. There's a ball right there, so it's got both. And I guess it says it's for a Cajon, which I never even think about sticks on a Cajon, but man, we are in a day. We're in the days now where people are expanding on sticks like no other. This is incredible.
Yeah, it's just pretty endless. So you've got those type of things, and then mallets. You know, I have a handful of mallets. in one of my stick bags. And I like to keep those around for mainly just for recordings for like cymbal swells and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't find myself using mallets on the drum kit ever. I know it's kind of a thing, like, you know, people use them on their floor tom when they're whatever.
Yeah.
But I've never found myself in a situation where I needed to use mallets on the drum kit, but I do have a handful around. And then I've got a pair of brushes as well, you know?
Yeah. It's one of those things where like it's good to have them. And I'm with you. Like normally I don't use mallets. I have 1 or 2 pair of mallets maybe, and I usually only use them on cymbals, and that's really specific for the environment that I'm in, like or the type of song.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're doing a cymbal swell with your sticks, you know, you can hear your sticks building on the cymbals, but if you do mallets, you can gradually swell them in.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like that's mostly as a trap kit player. I feel like that's mostly what my mallets serve the purpose for, is just my cymbals.
Yeah,
just for
and
swells.
you know, yeah, exactly. Myself as well. But yeah, I've worked with plenty of people recording, people who have used them on the drums, you know, turn the snares off and get little bit of a kick, floor tom snare with the snares off kind of beat going or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, they can be used for all kinds of things besides, you know, classical orchestral kind of stuff. But yeah. And there's a bazillion different kinds of mallets too. Like there's like the harder mallets, and there's the yarn mallets and the fuzzy one. There's all kinds of them.
Yeah.
So.
And I feel like with those, like even the application with using those is different than you would a normal stick. Like we were talking about, like where some people would use a different type of stick for a different genre. Like it seems pretty typical that you find your stick, like a 5B, and you buy a bunch of 5Bs.
Right.
But with this kind of stuff, it's like, it's common to have different types of these because like,
yeah, they're a different sound.
Yeah. They're not
like,
differing a whole lot on the build of the feel of how you're holding it. It's more or less the material change of the end of it, like whether it's a brush or a rod or whatever. So this I can see where having a slew of different options would be would be beneficial. It's pretty cool, man. I'd like to dig in. Not like I have much of a use for these with the music that I play, but knowing that these are out there is really cool. I had no idea the different options that there were. Yeah,
there's plenty.
Yeah,
there is plenty. Well, cool, man. I don't know if we need to really get into too much depth on anything else. Is there anything else that you think we need to hit? We haven't?
No, but I did see, talking about metal sticks, I saw that Vic Firth on here makes...
Oh, no.
They make a metal tipped stick.
Oh, no.
And then it looks like they had a stick where, unless I'm wrong, it looked like they showed the butt of the stick.
Yeah.
And it looked like they had like hollowed out the stick and filled it with metal, like running a metal rod in through the center of it.
Why?
Like, gosh, like if that stick broke, you just, I don't know. I don't know. For? Go talk to your buddies at Vic Firth.
Nah. What is it for? All right. Well, you know.
I think that's it for sticks, man. And now, like, we've kind of touched on all the basics of drums, like with heads and cymbals, and kind of touched on hardware and sticks. And so now we're going to, in future episodes, I'm excited to see how we can apply some of this stuff. We're getting into, Dave, you and I have recording background and all kinds of stuff ahead. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Episode 10. We've done 10 episodes so far. So
that's right.
With that being said, if you guys aren't following us on our social media, make sure you go check us out. All of them are Facebook /DrumChats, Instagram /DrumChats, Twitter, the same thing, our YouTube channel. And of course, make sure you go subscribe to us on this podcast on iTunes, and give it, if you don't mind, go give us a review and a quick 5 stars. No less than 4.
Even if you mind.
Request. Even if you do mind, just go ahead and go do it anyway.
Cool. Well, thanks for hanging out with me and talking sticks, and thanks to all of you for listening, and we'll come back in a couple weeks with another one.
Cool. See you guys.
Bye.
We're about to draw our lucky winner for this year's annual Drum Chats giveaway, and the first ever giveaway. We had over 35 entries. Thank you to everyone who entered the contest, and I'm about to draw the name. 3, 2, 1. Matthew Todd, you are the proud winner and owner of the first DrumChats giveaway contest prize. And thanks for entering. Thank you to all of you who entered. Make sure you come back and enter next year. Thanks, guys.